What's up, YouTube? How's it going? So today I wrote down some notes. I've had a lot of questions and comments about the C8 Corvette. Now, I've had some seat time in some of the other Corvettes. My dad's a big Corvette guy and he's owned like 5 or 6 in his life. So yes, I've had some seat time in Corvettes. I've test drove several, and we're going to talk about the C8. The C8 is very interesting to me, and it got a little bit more interesting. Now, I've had a lot of people give me a hard time saying, yep, you're fixing to go buy a C8. Now, that is not the case. I would like to go ahead and throw this out there. That is not the case. I'm not fixing to buy a C8. Will I ever buy a C8? I'm not going to say I won't ever buy a C8. I do want to get my truck paid off first. I'm not looking to get rid of my Tundra, but that would probably have to happen for me to buy a C8 right now. I wouldn't want both those car payments at one time, but something has really intrigued me, and we'll get into that here in just a minute. The reason I wouldn't buy a C8 right now is because I would want Chevy to actually work the bugs out of the vehicle. You know, I don't like buying first year vehicles. As good as they may test those things now and put them through all that stuff and everything, all the trials and testing, I don't trust a first year vehicle, and I just would not go out and buy a first year one, nor even after, 5 years down the road would I probably buy a Gen 1 C8 Corvette. I would probably give it a couple years and buy one 2 or 3 years in to let them work those out, because inevitably there's going to be some kind of, crazy bug that rears its ugly head and, just kind of gives the first gen or second gen a bad, or first couple years, or not first gen, second gen, but first couple years, a bad rep for something going wrong with them. Whether it be the transmission, that dual clutch transmission we'll get into here in a little bit, or whether it be like the mid-engine heating up, and we're going to talk about that a little bit as well, because a lot of mid-engine cars, or not a lot, but I'm gonna say some mid-engine cars, such as like the MR2 and stuff like that, had some overheating issues. And I actually talked to a guy that had an MR2 that his actually caught on fire, and he actually had to add extra fans and stuff like that to keep that thing cool enough to where it would not catch on fire, I guess. But we're going to see if Chevy has that figured out, and I hope they do, because this car has a lot of promise. So let's get into it just a little bit. Enough rambling. Let's get into the actual, the meat and potatoes of the video. So we're talking about the new 2020 C8 Corvette mid-engine. They're not making any more C7s. The C7s are done. You can no longer buy a front engine Corvette, which is a little bit exciting to me, because mid-engine cars should handle better. That's why supercars are mid-engine cars. Your weight balance ratio, it's like almost a 50-50 weight ratio in the vehicle, and they handle so much better, and that's exciting news for Corvette fans. They get the extra handling that you were lacking. Not saying that the C7s didn't handle good, but this should even handle that much better. So you should be really excited about that if you are a Corvette fan. So we're getting a new engine, 6.2 liter V8, which is pumping out 490 horsepower and 465 foot-pounds of torque. I also seen a second number. They added like 495 and 470, added like 5 horsepower and 5 foot-pounds of torque. Not sure what that engine was about. Didn't see anything about it when I was reading the article, but we're going to go with the baseline, because the baseline is pretty much what I'm talking about right here. But 490 horsepower, 465 foot-pounds of torque. So this thing's not even pushing 500 horsepower. Remember that. There's a lot of cars that push 500 horsepower, but we're going to get into something here in just a minute that is amazing. The big kicker. This is the hugest thing I can even think about. The car starts out at under $60,000. Let that sink in. You are buying a mid-engine, basically supercar. I know it's still a Corvette. I don't know if Corvettes will ever be considered supercars because of their price point. But you are essentially buying a car with supercar specs for under $60,000. If this thing does not automatically soar to best bang for your buck, I don't know what ever will, because $59,900, whatever the base price is, and you're getting a 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute, because that is crazy at that. Now, there's no top speed I've seen on this yet, but I have to believe the top speed of this Corvette is going to be close to 200 mile an hour, if not just a tick over. I don't know why Chevy would build a car like this and not have the spec over 200 mile an hour or right at it, because all the other cars in this class are so close to it. You have to believe it's going to be right there at it to directly compete with its direct competitors. I mean, that you just have to believe that. So I'm still looking for that top speed to be announced, but I've not seen it yet. But that 0 to 60 in 2.8 puts it in supercar realm to me. I mean, that's where the supercars are at nowadays, under 3 seconds. And we're going to talk about a car that's way more expensive than this here in a little bit that does not do that. All right, so the one thing that I noticed about it when I was looking at the picture is this new styling. It's not like any other Corvette you've ever seen. It looks more like, I'm going to say it looks more like the new Acura NSX than it does any Corvette I've ever seen, which isn't a bad thing, but it's longer than the Acura. We'll get into that. The length is actually 182.3 inches. It's 76.1 inches wide. 48.6 inches tall, which is pretty short, and it weighs 3,366 pounds. But the interior is actually angled towards you, which makes you feel like you're kind of in a cockpit. You know, you're kind of sandwiched in here, you're kind of in that cockpit. Everything is looking at you. Nothing is focused on the passenger in this car because it is a driver's car. So all your controls, all your buttons, and it does have a lot of buttons and a lot of switches. This thing has tons of buttons and switches. There's like a whole column row down through here just of switches. I can't wait to get in one of these. I'm sure I'll find one at a dealer if I can, because they are going to be stupid booked. I'm sure there's people already on the list waiting to pick these cars up if you can get on it. If not, as soon as this list comes out, people will be on the list waiting to buy this car. You can guarantee it. This is going to be one of the hardest cars to get for probably the first year or two of probably almost anything ever made, just because of the price point and the specs that come along with it, unless they start having some major problems. I want to throw it in there. If they start having some major issues, that might, you know, deter people from buying this car. But as long as the car holds up and seems like it's going to be a quality car, this car is going to be hard to get, and it will be very collectible right off the bat. I do not think Chevy is going to be able to keep up with production and demands on this car at that price point, in my opinion. But it is a driver-focused car. Everything is pointed back towards you. It does kind of remind me, kind of like the old Supras or something like that, where they were kind of angled back towards you. The passenger gets no say-so in anything because they're just along for the ride and the enjoyment of being in a C8 Corvette. So, you know, if your wife's in there, and I'm saying this because my wife does this, and starts controlling the radio, she don't get no say-so in this car because she can't reach it. So if you have that same problem, think about getting a C8 Corvette. You can listen to what you want to. Next, we're going to talk about the new 8-speed transmission. Now, it is a dual clutch trans, and what that means is it has different clutches, 2 different clutches for odds and even gears. But what's cool about this, and a lot of sports cars and supercars do have the dual clutch transmission. I do believe the new GT500 Mustang has that, if I'm not mistaken. And you know, a lot of times they go with this clutch or this transmission, I mean, because you cannot get the performance out of a manual that you can get out of an automatic transmission. Now, there's no way that you can probably take a manual C8 Corvette, if they were going to make one, and get it 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. I'm going to assume that they use some kind of traction control to reach these specs and those numbers. And you just cannot shift gears as a human as fast as that clutch is going to be able to change gears. It's not going to happen. It happens within like milliseconds in the GT500. I'm assuming it's going to happen the same speed in the C8 Corvette. So as humans, we can't do it. It might offend some of you guys. Technology is faster than you when it works correctly. So it also has cylinder deactivation. Why is that something crazy? Why am I even talking about that? I hate cylinder deactivation. I hate it. But this is the first time that cylinder deactivation and a dual clutch transmission has been used in the same vehicle. This will cause, here, let me tell you why it's a little bit crazy. Because cylinder deactivation can cause a vibration in the cockpit of the car, so when it drops down, but your torque converter usually absorbs that and you don't really feel it. Well, In this dual clutch, they have actually, let's see here, they've actually made this happen by allowing the dual clutch gearbox to loosen its grip on the cylinder deactivation and allow the RPMs and allow some RPM slippage to happen, hence making the vibration, not being able to be felt in the cabin. But they've actually allowed the gearbox to allow some RPM slippage so you don't feel that vibration, and that is a first in the industry as far as what the article that I read on it, which is why this is so amazing. But I do hope that you can deactivate that permanently and activate it, permanently as you want fit. I hope it's not something like the Ford F-150s and other vehicles that when you start it up, you have to deactivate it every time you start the vehicle. I hate that. I'm sure that's the way it's going to be, but I still hate that, and I wish they would do away with that and just make it where it's either constantly on all the time or constantly off all the time. But I'm sure that's probably not the way that's going to be set up. But that is why that is so significant, is because no other company has ever done that before. That is one of those bugs that we need to see if it works. That's exactly what I was talking about. Will they work out all the bugs and everything? Something that is brand new to the industry, that makes me worry a little bit, which is why I would not buy a first gen or first 2 or 3 years actually probably of this vehicle to let them get that worked out. And I want to say, here's where the comparison comes. I'm not going to get into all the details about this car. I wanted to make this a short video. We're like 12 minutes in right now. Sorry about that. But this car's price point is coming in at under $60,000. Let's compare that to some other cars in its price point. You have the Porsche 911, which starts at $113,300, almost twice the amount of that car. Then you have the Ford GT, which starts at $500,000. The 0 to 60 in the Ford GT is 3.0 seconds. Nissan GTR has about the same specs, starts out $100,000. It's starting to rain. I'm going to continue this video. Starts out $100,000 and you get about the same specs in it as you do the Corvette. Now what does that get you? You get all that for under $60,000, supercar specs, and you still have room for your golf clubs in the trunk, which a lot of supercars, you don't. Again, I may buy one of these cars down the road. It won't be anytime soon. The first 2 or 3 years, I'm gonna let them work the bugs out of those, but I do think this is gonna be one of the greatest bang for the bucks, one of the biggest bargains that you're gonna be able to find in the sports car world for quite a while, and I think a lot of other car manufacturers are going to have to do a lot to catch up with the price point and the specs and the drivability of this new C8 mid-engine Corvette. I appreciate y'all watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts of the C8 Corvette in the comments. We'll see you next time.